These are every Japanese truck, car, and support vehicle used in World War II. Subscribe for more videos. We start with trucks and transporters. Type 94 six-wheeled truck. The six-legged backbone, one of Japan's most successful military truck designs. The Type 94 six-wheeler used a three-axle configuration to distribute weight across soft and uneven ground. It served as a critical logistical workhorse throughout the China campaign, moving ammunition, fuel, and supplies for divisions operating far from reliable roads. Type 97 four-wheeled truck. The Field Runner, a lighter utility truck built for rapid transport and officer movement across forward areas. Its four-wheel drive capability gave it genuine versatility in the rough terrain of China and Southeast Asia, making it one of the more practical Japanese military vehicles of the early war period. Type 1 six-wheeled truck. The wartime standard, introduced later in the war as Japan scrambled to rationalize its chaotic vehicle inventory. The Type 1 was a rugged, standardized logistical truck designed for maximum production efficiency under wartime resource constraints. It was tougher and more reliable than many of its predecessors, but arrived too late and in too few numbers to solve Japan's fundamental logistics crisis. Here's a number that should stop you cold. By 1943, the Japanese army in Burma was operating vehicles from over 30 different manufacturers, with completely incompatible spare parts. A broken truck wasn't just a broken truck. It was a permanent loss, because the odds of finding the right spare part in a forward jungle depot were essentially zero. Toyota G1/GA. The drafted civilian, early commercial trucks produced by Toyota that were rapidly militarized and pressed into service when the conflict in China escalated beyond Japan's prepared logistics capacity. They were never designed for combat zone conditions, but Japan needed every vehicle it could find, and Toyota's pre-war commercial fleet provided a ready pool of serviceable haulers. Toyota KB/KC. The Toyota workhorse, mass-produced by Toyota and forming the core of the Imperial Army's motorized transport fleet for much of the war. The KB and KC variants were reliable, relatively simple to maintain, and available in larger numbers than most purpose-built military trucks. They were seen on logistical routes from Manchuria to the jungles of Burma. Nissan 8180. The Nissan hauler, militarized versions of Nissan's robust commercial truck chassis, common sights on supply routes across every occupied territory Japan controlled. Like the Toyota variants, these were civilian designs adapted for military use, a reflection of Japan's inability to produce purpose-built military trucks in sufficient quantities to meet wartime demand. Isuzu TX40. The Isuzu Veteran, Isuzu's highly successful pre-war civilian truck model that proved robust enough to convert into a reliable military hauler. Its solid pre-war engineering made it one of the more durable vehicles in Japanese service, and it remained in use throughout the conflict as a dependable heavy logistics vehicle for units that needed something tougher than the standard medium trucks. We move on to staff cars and light utility vehicles. Type 95 Kurogane. The Iron Scout, Japan's most iconic and widely produced four-wheel drive vehicle of the war. This small, nimble staff car was used by field officers across every theater Japan fought in, from the frozen plains of Manchuria to the tropical jungles of the Philippines. Its four-wheel drive capability and compact size made it genuinely useful in terrain that would stop a conventional car, and it holds the distinction of being one of Japan's first domestically designed four-wheel drive vehicles. Now here's something almost nobody talks about. While Germany had the Kübelwagen and America had the Jeep. Purpose-built, purpose-designed light military vehicles produced in the hundreds of thousands. Japan's equivalent was essentially a pre-war civilian staff car with a fresh coat of paint. That gap in light vehicle capability meant Japanese field officers were often moving around the battlefield in vehicles less capable than what their enemies were using as throwaway scout cars. Toyota AA/AC. The General's Ride, Toyota's foundational passenger car models, served throughout the war as the primary transport for high-ranking officers and headquarters staff. Adapted from civilian production, the AA and AC were comfortable enough for long-distance command travel and available in sufficient numbers to equip most divisional and corps-level headquarters across the Japanese military. Nissan Model 70. The Commander's Nissan, a comfortable and reliable medium passenger car produced by Nissan and frequently assigned to division and regimental commanders who needed dependable transport between headquarters and forward positions. It represented Japan's pragmatic approach to staff car procurement. Rather than develop elaborate purpose-built command vehicles, they militarized the best civilian designs available. Type 93 Staff Car. The Standard Commander, a ruggedized military passenger car built to a standard military specification, used for rapidly moving commanders and staff officers across the battlefield. Unlike the civilian-derived Toyota and Nissan models, the Type 93 was designed from the outset with military requirements in mind, offering better durability and reliability under field conditions. Type 98 Passenger Car. The simplified staff car, a streamlined passenger car introduced later in the war with an explicit emphasis on simplified manufacture over comfort or performance. As Japan's industrial situation deteriorated, even staff cars had to be redesigned to use fewer scarce materials, and the Type 98 reflected that reality. Functional, austere, and built to keep senior officers mobile as cheaply as possible. We move on to tractors and prime movers. Type 92 5-ton prime mover. The gun puller, designated the IQ. This heavy prime mover was the standard tractor for hauling Japan's large-caliber field artillery. Its 5-ton pulling capacity made it capable of moving the heavier guns in the Japanese arsenal, and it served throughout the war as the backbone of the Army's motorized artillery towing fleet. Type 92 8-ton prime mover. The heavy hauler, the largest in Japan's prime mover series, designated the NIQ. This 8-ton behemoth was built to move the most massive artillery pieces and heavy engineering equipment in the Japanese inventory. It was slow and fuel-hungry, but nothing else in the Japanese fleet could handle the heaviest towing tasks it was assigned. Type 94 4-ton prime mover. The artillery servant, designated the Yoku. This 4-ton capacity tractor was the most widely used artillery prime mover in Japanese divisional service, responsible for towing standard field guns including the 75mm Type 95. It struck a practical balance between towing capacity and mobility, making it the everyday workhorse of Japan's motorized artillery arm. Here's what that actually meant on the battlefield. During the Battle of Imperial in 1944, one of the most catastrophic Japanese defeats of the entire war, entire artillery batteries were abandoned not because they were destroyed by the enemy, but because Japan ran out of prime movers and fuel to move them. Guns that took months to ship from the home islands were left in the jungle because there was nothing left to pull them out. The vehicles on this list weren't a footnote to that defeat. They were the reason for it. Type 95 13-ton prime mover. The Swamp Walker, designated the Hofu. This massive 13-ton tracked prime mover was built specifically for extreme cross-country towing in the most challenging terrain Japan's armies encountered, particularly the swampy lowlands of China and Southeast Asia, where wheeled tractors simply could not operate. It was one of the most capable vehicles in the Japanese military inventory, though its complexity and weight limited production numbers severely. Type 98 6-ton prime mover. The medium mover, designated the Row, this 6-ton prime mover filled the gap between the lighter divisional tractors and the massive 8 and 13-ton heavyweights. It was used primarily for transporting medium artillery and large quantities of ammunition, and its combination of reasonable mobility and solid towing capacity made it one of the more useful vehicles in Japan's prime mover fleet. Type 1 Hoki tractor. The armored puller, an armored tractor based on the Hoki personnel carrier chassis, built for heavy towing and vehicle recovery in high-risk forward areas where an unprotected tractor crew would be too vulnerable. Its armored protection allowed recovery teams to operate closer to the front line than conventional engineering vehicles could safely reach. We move on to armored cars and rail vehicles. Type 92 Chiyoda. The Naval Land Fighter, an early armored car design used primarily by the Special Naval Landing Forces, Japan's naval infantry. Built around commercial vehicle components, it was never a sophisticated design, but it gave Japan's naval ground forces armored firepower support during the early amphibious operations that expanded the empire's reach across the Pacific. Type 91 Soamo. The Rail Warrior, One of the most distinctive vehicles in the entire Japanese military inventory, the Type 91 SOMO was designed to operate on both roads and railway tracks. It was instrumental in guarding Manchuria's vast railway network against Chinese partisan attacks, patrolling thousands of miles of track that would have been impossible to protect with conventional infantry alone. Type 95 Soki, the Track Guardian, a dedicated armored railway car used extensively for patrolling and protecting Japan's critical rail infrastructure in China. As guerrilla attacks on supply lines became an increasingly serious problem throughout the China campaign, armored railway vehicles like the Soki became essential tools for keeping the logistical arteries of the occupation functioning. Sumida M.2593, the early armor, an important early armored car that served during Japan's initial military expansion into China. It played a crucial role in the border skirmishes and early engagements that preceded full-scale war, giving Japanese ground commanders armored reconnaissance capability before purpose-built military designs became available in quantity. And here's the part that almost nobody mentions. Japan's entire early armored vehicle program was built on a foundation of foreign technology they studied, copied, and improved. The next vehicle on this list is the reason why. Vickers Crossley, the blueprint they bought. Here's what makes this vehicle genuinely significant and why it belongs on this list even though it was British. Japan didn't just buy these armored cars. They reverse-engineered them. The Vickers Crossley gave Japanese engineers hands-on experience with armored vehicle construction at a time when Japan had almost none of its own, and the design lessons learned directly shaped every domestic armored car that followed. You cannot understand the SOMO, the Toyota, or the Sumida without understanding that they all trace their lineage back to this British vehicle Japan purchased decades before the war began. We finish with motorcycles. Type 97 Rikuo, the American-born Scout, essentially a licensed Japanese-manufactured version of the American Harley-Davidson motorcycle. The Rikuo was the primary two-wheeled scouting and dispatch vehicle of the Imperial Army. The irony of Japan fighting a war against America while riding American-designed motorcycles was not lost on observers, but the Rikuo was simply the most reliable motorcycle Japan had available, and practicality won out over symbolism. Type 93 motorcycle, the Sidecar Soldier, an early military motorcycle model frequently fitted with a sidecar to carry supplies, ammunition, or a machine gun crew. The sidecar configuration transformed a simple dispatch vehicle into a light combat and logistics platform, giving battalion and regimental commanders a mobile fire support option that required far less fuel and maintenance than any armored vehicle. Kurogane three-wheeler, the Urban Courier, a simple three-wheeled motorized vehicle built cheaply and in large numbers for light cargo transport and courier duties, particularly in the urban environments of occupied China. Its three-wheel configuration made it highly maneuverable in narrow streets and crowded markets, and its low cost meant it could be produced in quantities that more sophisticated vehicles could never match.